So the word I want to talk about today is hormonal. And the way it came to me actually the other day, I was on the tube traveling and I heard a couple in their 30s, I believe. They were talking, I overheard them, and the man, he said to his partner, to the woman, jokingly, laughing, he said, "Oh, you're being hormonal again." And it got me thinking how many times I myself have heard this word, especially used for women. "Oh, you're being hormonal again." So I want to take a closer look at this word. And for that, I'm going to follow two paths. I'm going to focus on the word hormone, but I also want to focus on the word hysteria, because I think their journeys are interestingly intertwined. But let's look at the word hormone first. It comes from Greek. Basically, it can mean to excite, or it can also mean to set something in motion. But its usage is actually quite modern. In 1905, Ernest Starling, a professor of physiology at University College London, he is the first person to use the word hormone in his lectures, as he was talking about the chemical correlation of the functions of the body. So he's bringing a chemical explanation for bodily phenomena. And that's in that context he uses the word hormone for the first time. And since then, the word has been used to mean exhibiting emotional or behavioral effects, of hormones. For instance, we say, "Oh, I was hormonal after giving birth. I was crying all the time." Or we say, "Those boys, they're just being hormonal." Or we say, "I'm craving chocolates, it's that time of the month and I'm being hormonal again." And what draws my attention is in all these examples, the word hormonal means irrational or emotional or sentimental or eccentric, that you can't really control your behavior. And usually, almost always, the word is used to describe the behavior of either women or youth, But very rarely it is used for grown men, for adult men, in the same way. So it's mostly for women and mostly for youth. And why is that? Because we're all affected by our hormones. We all go through hormonal fluctuations and hormonal cycles. And I think at the end of the day, hormonal health is important for all human beings of all genders. But why is it that it is almost always used to describe the behavior of women and youth? The second part that I want to take you through focuses on the word hysteria. Again, it comes to us from ancient Greek and it's connected with the word uterus. And this theory about wandering uterus or mobile uterus, traveling uterus. There were many ancient Greek philosophers and physicians who wrote about this notion of a traveling mobile womb. One of them is very intriguing to me, mostly because he lived in the country, in the part of the world where I come from, in Asia Minor. His name was Aretheus of Cappadocia. And he wrote extensively about this notion of wandering uterus. And this is an idea, this is a conviction actually, more than an idea, that came all the way into the medieval ages, the Renaissance, and the Victorian era. So many women, hundreds and thousands of women, because especially it was used for women, even though they sometimes talked about hysterical men as well, the term itself was mostly regarded as a feminine condition. So many women have been treated, diagnosed with hysteria. This conviction describes the wandering uterus as an animal within animal, which might remind you of the term that Sigmund Freud would use later on, the mind within the mind. I find it interesting, this idea of a traveling unconscious. I think it's interesting that Freud himself started his own professional career, his own journey, by studying hysteria. So it looks like some of the old rhetoric definitely seeped into Freud's work. And so underlying emphasis is that women are affected by this notion of wandering uterus and it drives them crazy. They exhibit irrational behavior. And in literature especially, we have so many, in literature but also in cinema, in films, we have so many female characters that reflect this. Of course, immediately Bronte's Jane Eyre comes to mind. The mad woman living in the attic. Was she really mad? Or does that say something about the gender roles, the gender role expectations of the era? There's a brilliant book I want to recommend you to read if you're interested in these subjects, and it's called From Hysteria to Hormones. It is written by an academic, Amy Korber, and what she does is, like various other feminist scholars, she brilliantly examines the rhetoric before the emergence of the word hormone, and she especially looks at the metaphors. Basically, she evaluates 2,500 years of science, medicine, but also popular culture, daily parlance. And basically what she looks at, how the word hysteria and hormone, they have thrived upon similar metaphors. So what I'm trying to say is, we like to think of our modern science as completely advanced and progressive, as something that has nothing to do with the pre-modern conceptions, but actually many feminist scholars show a continuity, and they say some of the old rhetoric, some of these old metaphors have been actually employed in our modern science and also in today's popular culture. And all of this affects the way we talk about female reproductive health today. Hormonal health, at the end of the day, affects all of us. And it is important for all of us, people of all genders. Let's stop using it only to describe the behavior or the life experiences of women and youth. Let's acknowledge the fact that we're all shaped by or affected by our hormones. And therefore, I think we need to underline that primarily there's nothing to be ashamed of when we talk about hormonal fluctuations, hormonal cycles. We need a new rhetoric, we need a new language, but that language has to be more inclusive and much more egalitarian.